Hello, it's Phillip Taylor from Richmond Green Chambers. I'm looking at a book today called Introduction to European Tax Law, Direct Taxation. It's published by a relatively new publisher called Spiramus, and what it looks at is obviously the whole issue of European tax. It's been written by four people: Michael Lang, Pasquale Pistone, Joseph Schutz and Klaus Staringer. I hope I have pronounced their names properly. I've given it a title on the internet for the book review sites of Being Direct About EU Tax, because tax is an emotive issue, and I've given it a subheading: The debate begins with this valuable contribution. Now, whatever one's views about the EU, the element of taxation, both for member states and for our membership of the European Union, is going to be one that will evoke a lot of controversy. What I've said in this particular view of the book is that voters always normally decide the result of the next general election that's about to take place on the basis of taxation policies. Obviously there can be other influences, but clearly the biggest single one will be tax, and in the current international economic downturn it will be the main issue. It's provided that case basically year by year, and quite often when these matters are debated at the various party conferences, tempers do flare up a bit, even with the control that is used, because there are always going to be factions within the parties, part possibly from the Liberal Democrats, who are pro or anti-EU as an organisation. The E word, that's anything Europe, fortunately has not raised its ugly head in a controversial way in Britain since the demise of John Major's government in 1997. And of course there was the build-up from that of various political parties like the Referendum Party and UKIP. Obviously it's now time though to consider this topic in a legal context, and that's what Spiramus and these editors have done. Who are Spiramus? Well, Spiramus are to be congratulated because they deal with these quite detailed areas of law. They're very refreshing publications because they've produced what is actually a complex yet short work of collected thoughts which add considerable weight to the argument on all sides. And I'm sure that the issues will be rehearsed again and again when the issue of the European Union figures. It will do obviously in the summer of 2009 with the European Parliament elections. Lang and his team have succeeded, in my view, in their aim of giving an introduction to European direct taxation for learners and for practitioners, whatever the stance that's been taken by the 10 individual essay writers. And the success of this book is that it does not focus on a specific national tax system, but gives us 9 research essays from the Institute for Austrian and International Tax Law in Vienna. Now, obviously you can look at the individual areas that are covered, some of which are quite detailed and a little bit complex to understand initially. We're looking at things like the parent subsidiary directive, the merger directive, the interest and royalty directive, and so on. Clearly it's an area that will be with us, whatever one's views about the EU, for some years to come. There's a lot of mass, intricate detail throughout, and the content, as I said, is heavy, but I found the most relevant chapter for me was the future direction of European tax law, which is contained in both the parent subsidy and the merger directives. In simple terms, I think I can say that the problem is the conflict between direct taxation falling within the competence of the member state on the one hand, and the complete elimination of unfair economic double taxation and merger on the other. So you've got that little balancing act that needs to be sorted out. Even an examination of recent political history of the relevant directives will show that we have at last taken tentative steps towards an ordered approach, hopefully for an eventual form of agreed direct taxation, although of course Lang and his team can offer no conclusions, and actually I don't think they should at this stage. That's clearly the right approach to adopt at the moment. I was wondering when I had a look at this book, it came through to me at the Barrister magazine, and I wondered whether I'd come away with anything resembling a concrete conclusion or a solution to the main issue without expecting one. However, that little ray of sunshine, hope, is always there in the form of Patrick Pansky's critical issues on the final page referring to the Arbitration Convention. Now, the Convention is a mutual agreement procedure, and although it's not in a legal form, can be rightly seen as a positive step forward in integration, and of course the removal of double taxation. I know this is a difficult area because obviously there are a lot of people who don't want anything like this. However, I suspect they're in a minority. The fact is that these matters are actually being discussed, and I think that's the key, the fact we've even got that far. And it's encouraging, although I do concede that it'll be the latter half probably of this century before we see positive integration into one defined system for all member states. But I suspect we'll see eventually tiers of taxation develop in the next 50 years from local tax. That's the sort of member state tax and EU direct tax in bands. If you think about it, we've got the current taxation system. We've got the Conservatives talking about changes in 2010, which could be quite substantial for local authorities. And you've then got to have a look at the local authority, the Parliament, and then at the member state level, and then the EU membership level, and see where they all fit in. So I can see some changes spread over probably the next 75 years. My unfortunate conclusion, however, is that if anything breaks up the EU at this stage, apart from a war, it could be quite clearly the failure to agree the sort of fiscal measures between the member states. And that, I think, since I even wrote this review, has been exacerbated by the global problems with the economic stability, if you like, of the world, which is being dealt with by a new president in America and almost certainly a new Prime Minister of one sort or another, I would have thought, in this country next year. In the words of some very wise people, I think we have to wait and see here. The work's an invaluable contribution, in my view, to the debate which we're going to have for years to come, and I welcome the approach that the editors and their colleagues have taken to open the debate up. So thank you very much, Spiramus. It's a great addition to my bookcase. Thank you. Bye-bye.